Yes, and we're live. So welcome everybody to yet another live interview with Become a Fearless Father. And today, Michael McGreevy, I am going to say it's 2 out of 4 so far of family. I'm lost. Entrepreneurial Family Man.
Nice. Nailed it.
And the other 2 are going to come on soon. And I'm actually trying to get all 4 of them on the show as well. So I am blessed to have Michael on today. Okay, so yes, door closed. I'm too loud. Anyway, that said, Michael, before we get into man, I have a question before we dive into your background story and you sharing with us your whole family setup, etc. Something I didn't ask Chris Niemeyer. Or did I? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. What is your philosophy on what does it mean to be a family man?
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm going to try to be concise with this one because I could go on and on about that. But my philosophy is that my wife and my kids are the most important people here on earth. And I want my life and what I do to reflect that fact and that value that I have. So what that means is they get my priority. They get my first thought when I think about my life and what I want to do and the things that we want to do together as a family and the things I want to do in business. It starts by thinking about my wife, first of all, and my kids. So my philosophy is to prioritize them over all other things.
Wow. Now, that is something that I've noticed is easier said than done. And now I'm talking about me. But before we dive into you, let's share with me what does that mean for you? Like, how easy is it? How not easy is it? Does it, like, from the beginning when you say it, is it like, okay, yeah, that's it, that's easy? How do you show, or how do you make sure that you live according to those values?
Well, let me make something absolutely clear. I am struggling to make that happen.
All right, I like that.
I mean, if you're a dad and you have to provide for your family, that is just going to be hard. It's just going to be a huge challenge. So I want to just take the pressure off right now. I don't have this locked down, and nobody has it locked down because it's difficult. I mean, it's impossible to acquire perfect balance in those different areas. So how do I do it? I start with how I even think about my life. I design my life and my business around what I want for my family and for my marriage. So practically what that looks like is I don't say, I'm going to go do this thing over here and then I'm going to fit my family into it. I decide, what do I want to do with my family? How do I want my relationship with my wife to be in my relationship with my kids? And then I'm actually going to design my business around that. So it's flipping that thing upside down a little bit. So I start with that. But yeah, there's going to be a tension there. If you're a business owner and you have to pay the bills and you have to keep growing, you're going to be pulled in different directions. And I just want to make sure that at least most of the time that my wife and my kids are winning in that tug of war.
No, that's a good thing. Yeah, it definitely is a struggle, especially, well, again, and I want the audience to know, I always look at me. Like, I can't speak for the one I'm interviewing, but for me, like, especially in the beginning of the journey where you're trying to make it work as an entrepreneur and you're trying to make that money, you're trying to provide. And we both know it's not just providing for them money-wise, like there's food on the table, but also emotional-wise, you're there, right? You got the time. That for me was a big struggle because, you want to build your business. So you want to spend all that time and you're excited. Your passion is there as well. You want to build that up. And at the same time, that's the struggle that we're talking about, right? Or at least that was my biggest struggle.
Mine too. Well, I don't know how deep you want to go here, but what's really going on there? I mean, underneath the surface, often as men, we want to feel like we've got our stuff together and we know how to build a strong business and we're successful. We want everybody to see us that way. And when we are choosing to invest in our families and our marriages first, we almost have to check that at the door, this wanting to be impressive to other people and wanting to strive and say, hey, look at me, check me out, see what I'm doing. And that's not easy for us to do as men, right? Because it's tied to who we are. We are often defined by our careers and what we do and what we accomplish. So choosing our families first, we're having to let some of that go, that pride and that need to be impressive or need to be liked or to be have others look up to you and say, wow, that dude's got it going on, that type of thing. So that's a real tension for all of us guys.
True that. All right, I want to dive more into that, letting go of our pride. But before we do, Michael, please share your background story, and always interested in you sharing as well your family setup so people can put things into perspective, right?
Sure. Yeah, so I've been married almost 6 years now, and I have a 4-year-old, almost 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So we have a lot going on over here, and it's awesome and crazy and chaotic. And I love every minute. Not every minute. That's a lie. I don't love every minute of it, but I love most of it. But as far as my story goes, I don't know how far to go back, but as a young man, I really struggled with knowing what I wanted and what I wanted to pursue in life, and just had a lot of insecurity and a lot of fear in my life. I was really controlled by anxiety. I remember in high school being too afraid to raise my hand when I was called on because I didn't want to make a fool of myself, or I would have an anxiety attack and fall apart. So that's kind of, I struggled with that, with anxiety for almost 15 years. And then after college, my first job was building houses on a framing crew. And one day, a friend of mine that I was working with, I watched him step off of the side of a 2nd-story house and fall 2 stories to his death.
Wow.
And it was, this is in the midst of me being overcome by insecurity and fear and all that kind of stuff. And so I ran down there to the basement to try to save him, and he ended up dying in my arms. And later that night, I had to tell his parents at the hospital what had happened to him. And as you can imagine, it was just one of the worst days of my life, seeing his parents that upset and that heartbroken, that for what happened to their son. Anyway, a few months later, I was swimming in the ocean on vacation with my family, and the riptide just was nasty. It started pulling me out. I was trying to have a good time boogie boarding and jumping in the waves and that sort of thing. And I realized, man, I might not get back in. This is like some pretty intense waves here. And so I decided, I'm done. I'm out of here. So I had fought and swam and pushed against the waves and got back into the shore. But when I looked over my shoulder, I saw 2 family friends. There were 2 girls, middle school age, early high school, and they had been washed way out into the ocean. Wow. And my first thought is, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm this insecure, fearful dude, and they're floating away, so I better go find some help. So I start looking around, and I didn't see anybody there that could help. And then I remembered what had happened when I had to go to that hospital and tell that kid's parents who died what had happened to him. And I realized if something wasn't done, that I'd have to do that again and relive the worst day of my life. And so I also knew that, man, if I didn't have to deal with this fear and anxiety anymore, like if I just drowned, that might be easier. So I actually chose the easy way out by jumping into the water to try to save them. And
wow.
Thinking that you're going to die, or knowing that you're not going to make it in, like why not exhaust yourself and swim as hard as you can? I mean, you're going to drown anyway. But before I knew it, I made it out to where those girls were. And I started to believe that we were going to make it back in. And I looked at both of them. I said, hey, do not let go of me. We're swimming all the way in today. And all 3 of us swam together and made it back into the shore. And that was the first moment, I think, where I realized, hey, maybe there's something in me that I have to offer. Maybe there's some strength or something for me to give to this world. And that's when I started to grow and I started to overcome my insecurity. It wasn't in an instant, this was a process, but that was the first day my thinking changed, of me thinking like, I have something to give. I have something to offer. I have strength to give to the world. And that started my kind of search for this whole personal growth thing. It started me thinking about what do I really want to do? How do I want to make a difference in this world? And that eventually led to me creating a coaching business, which is what I do full time now. I'm an executive coach. I work with leaders. I work with business owners to help them really find the clarity and the confidence that they need to live a life that's fulfilling and impactful.
I love it. We got a guest, an extra guest.
Hey, welcome to the party. What's your name, man?
Diego.
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 Diego. D-I-E-G-O.
Oh, I missed the D. Diego. Okay, I got you. Nice to meet you. I'm Michael. How are you, buddy?
Very good.
Nice to meet you.
Very good. We're working on the English. Right?
Hey.
Very good.
Muy bien, muy bien.
Look at that. Michael speaks Spanish.
Quito.
So I appreciate you sharing that, man. That's some life you had so far, and I guess for everybody and for the two girls, we're glad you found your strength. That's for sure. So one of the things that stood out to me was I think I saw a recent picture of you and your wife saying we're on date nights. So I think that's very important. But you as you've mentioned, you got a business, you got 3 very young kids. So how do you make sure that you stay connected with your wife? And if, because you just mentioned fulfilled life. I mean, we're not here to just stay connected with our wife, right? We're at least if you're talking about fulfillment and stuff like that, we're here to grow as separate, but also as together. So can you share a little bit of how do you make sure that with the business of day to day and taking care of the kids and taking care of the business, that you make sure that happens as well?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the philosophy too, that's of all the things that I want to suffer, that is the thing that I don't want. That's the first thing that I'm not going to let drop by the wayside, my marriage. And so that when I think about my week, even if I have tons of competing demands between work and kids and everything else going on, I will not let go of my relationship with my wife. I think especially in American society, that once you're married, that kind of becomes like an afterthought. I got to take care of all my business. Then if I have time, then I'll try to squeeze a date in and I'll try to invest in my marriage a little bit. But I don't look at it that way. I look at it as that's the first place where I want my investment to be. That's where I want my best to be, is with my wife and in my marriage. And practically what that looks like is just looking at the week. Like on Sunday nights, we'll be winding down after putting all the kids to bed, and we'll think, okay, well, what do we want to do this week? How can we connect? How can we make sure there's time with just you and I, where we're sitting across from each other and we can have an adult conversation uninterrupted and talk about how we're doing and where we're going. And it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there does have to be that time where you can connect on a deep level. So we try to do that every week. And sometimes that looks like a morning for 30 minutes before the kids get up. And sometimes it looks like a really nice dinner out on the town where we have a babysitter, but we try to make that a regular part of our relationship.
I like that, especially what you mentioned at the end, like when we're trying to make it a regular thing, right? And I gotta step my game up. Thanks to what you just shared. I already do the Sunday talk, but it's more in the sense of, okay, this is what I got coming up. So now instead of like what you said, like you're really intentionally thinking like, okay, this week, how does the schedules look like and what can we do to really connect and spend time together? So nice. I appreciate you sharing that. Very important.
It's tough. I'm not, I mean, I might be painting a picture like it's easy or something, but it's not at all.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes out of those conversations, the question is like, what do you need right now? Because let's face it, it's hard when you have little kids, and oftentimes our wives get the majority of the time with them.
Mhm.
And sometimes they're just burnt out and overwhelmed, and they need a break or they need some space. So sometimes it's not just about us spending time together, but it's about like, what do you need? What would restore your soul? And that could mean anything. It could mean a weekend away with their girlfriends. It could mean like this morning, actually, we did something. My wife, Lydia, I could just tell like it added up over time, and she needed a little bit of space. I said, well, what could that look like for you? She's like, if I could just have an hour to have a coffee and journal and read a book, I would be awesome for today. I'm like, all right, it's all yours. So this morning from 9 to 10, she went to Starbucks and read a book and journaled and hung out. Well, I hung out with the 3 kids before I started my day. And I'm happy to do that, to give her that extra rejuvenation to face everything that she has to face. And then I can go back to my business full-fledged and not be feeling guilty or feeling bad because she's overwhelmed, that sort of thing. So
Exactly. I like that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great question to ask. What do you need right now? Like I always try to ask, okay, how can I serve? But of course, that's very, very broad. However, when you that specific, saying, okay, what do you need right now? You know, and how can we make that work? And yeah, absolutely. Oh, look at that. It's your buddy.
Jamie,
That's awesome.
you know, there's another question that was helpful too around that same subject. What's the hardest part of your day? Man, a lot will come out of that question if you ask your wife. And now, as men, we have to be able to ask questions that we might not have the answer to, and that's okay. But sometimes just knowing what the hardest part of her day is can help us understand what she's going through and how we can then support her in better ways. Exactly. I remember there was a season of life when my wife said, well, the toughest part of my day is dinner time. I've been with the kids all day. They're like pulling on my clothes, saying, I want. And I'm just overwhelmed and exhausted. Like if I could have a little bit of help during that time, it would make my day a whole lot better. It's like, sign me up. All right, I'll take dinner time. Like we'll do it on these days. So then I'll cut my day off at 5 o'clock and head out there and make dinner for the kids, and it made things a lot better. So we have to be able to navigate these conversations, even though we might not have the answer for them, though.
Okay. Sorry, I started laughing because Jamie said never ask Lydia, what's it like to be married to Michael McGreevy? That's not nice, Jamie.
Oh, no. Feel free to ask that. You're going to get good, bad, and everything. It's all good.
Ugly.
I'm growing.
Well, if you don't, then that's, yeah. But yeah, it stood out, man. I from the pictures that I saw, and maybe this sounds weird, but you know, I just get pictures that I saw on Facebook, and yeah, sorry, I checked you out like a stalker, but I wanted to be as best informed as I can to lead a good.
That's only my fake life.
Exactly. No, that's one thing. But one thing that stood out was like your wife looks like a rock, like an amazing woman that, you know, takes care of the family, takes care of you, and just radiates. That's what I saw. And yes, what you see, it's just snapshots. So I might be absolutely wrong, but that's the impression that I got. And from what you share right now, I mean, I think I saw that correctly.
Well, let me just clear the air here. Neither of us are rocks. We struggle. We're growing. I mean, we have moments where we feel ashamed about how we've parented. And we have moments when we're proud of how our kids are acting. So we are not rocks, but you know what we are is we're together, and we're committed to doing this thing together. Even when we are so mad at each other that we want to kill each other, like we know that we're still committed to doing this together, and we're going to push through this and learn from it and grow from it. And that's really, that's key, because it's going to get messy, and you're going to get mad, and you're going to get overwhelmed, and your own insecurities are going to come out. Her insecurities are going to come out. We just have to be willing to say, yes, we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep trying to grow.
Yeah, which you notice nowadays, more and more people just letting go and trying to go into the next thing, bringing all that baggage with them, and then going from one problem to the next.
Exactly. Like, oh, I think I'm falling out of love with this person. Oh, really? I think you're falling out of commitment to your marriage is what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. You mentioned a couple of things that I wanted to go into. We talked about like let go of your pride. Of course, that counts with your marriage, of course, as well. Let's have it in that second. You mentioned something like, sometimes you feel ashamed as a parent, as a dad, right? Sometimes you make mistakes. You, Michael, how do you deal with that? How do you,
just say I'm sorry. Oftentimes it's apologizing to my oldest son, Gunner, when he's just pushing all my buttons, just like making me so mad because he's not listening or whatever. And I snap. Maybe I yell at him, or maybe I discipline him a little bit more than I should. And sometimes what that looks like is coming back to him and being just, oh, I'm sorry, buddy. I overreacted. It wasn't right what I said, or it wasn't right what I did. Can you forgive me? And in that moment, that's for me personally to say I'm sorry, to own my own mistakes. And I'm also teaching him about what it looks like to own his mistakes when he needs to come back and say he's sorry. So that's the first thing I think of doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Being that example for him as well.
It's painful.
Yeah, no, I bet. So that also ties in with the ego, right?
Yes.
So share about that. How does one go about letting go of their ego? Because I think that might be just one of the hardest things to do.
I'm far from a psychologist, but for me, it's just remembering, and I'm a man of faith, and it's remembering what God did for me, and that's why I can then come to my son and offer that same forgiveness. And I don't always do it perfectly. I'm stubborn at times and don't want to admit when I'm wrong. But I just know how God forgives me over and over again, and that's been a good example for me to offer that to my kids.
And that ties in then also with letting go of your pride when it comes to what you mentioned earlier, right? Because we as men, we want to show off to other men and show everybody how successful we are, et cetera, et cetera. Pride or ego again comes into that. Does that work the same way? Is that also tied in with your religion, saying like, okay, I'm a man, and how do you go about making sure that? Because I have sometimes it's difficult for me. Let's say it like that. Sometimes it's difficult for me, right? You're in a conversation and it's like, how's it going? Man, it's booming. At the same time, you're like, I'm struggling. Hopefully, he doesn't been through this, right? So how do you deal with that as a man to just make sure that you are the man that you want to become, right? Because that's what it comes down to.
You're exactly right. It's an identity issue. So if our identity is tied up in what we do for a career, or how much our wife is treating us nicely, or how good our kids are, then our identity just rises and falls depending on how we're doing in those areas of life. So you're subject to the whims of how your wife, what kind of day she's having, or what kind of season your business is having, or how your kids are acting. And that is a very precarious place for your identity to be. So when your identity is in God, when it's established by something outside of those areas of life that are up and down, it can be consistent and carry you through. Even when all those things are falling apart, you know who you are. I know this is a deep discussion, and I love it because it's so much of the ways that guys act out is based on them not knowing who they are and them being confused about their identity because of what's going on in their life.
Exactly. So, all right. So I'm sorry, I dropped my pen. I'm writing as much as I can, taking in notes. And so, okay, so it comes down to making sure that you know who you are, right? And that's the journey. Is that correct? Did I?
That's a big part of it. I think let me put it this way. If you don't know who you are and you start to look around for things that can make you feel like you're strong or like you're competent or you're good in these different areas of life. And we talked about what can happen as a result of us like grasping for something that makes us feel good about ourselves. But let's say everything was taken away from you. What if you didn't have your business? What if you didn't have your wife or your kids? Who are you? Like what if you didn't have a house or didn't have any money or everything was taken away from you in a moment? Does that mean your identity has been taken too? No, you're still the same person. You're still the same man. So in my opinion, or for me personally, I found my identity in Jesus. And he informs who I am. And that way, when I go into my business, if I have a bad day, I still know who I am. If I have an amazing day, I can be thankful and I still know who I am. If I'm in a huge fight with my wife and it looks like things aren't going to work out, I still know who I am and I can still keep going. So that's what it's all about for me personally.
Exactly. And that's very powerful. I mean, that makes you, I can assume, very confident, very strong from the inside out instead of from the outside in. Did I?
Exactly.
All right, cool. I'm
Exactly.
getting it. I love it. That's awesome. All right, great. I really appreciate that. So I want to continue a little bit.
Diego's back in the house.
Oh, he's still here. He's being very good.
Good man.
We're very excited. We just swam in the pool before we came on, and he's actually swimming without his floating devices. So,
what's the Spanish word for floating devices?
flotadores. Right?
Flotadores.
Flotadores.
No flotadores.
Exactly. So he's very proud, and so is his daddy.
That is awesome.
He's really cool. Yeah, we have tons of fun. So talking about swimming pool and stuff like that, and we're playing a lot with the ball, right? Creating adventures and fun moments with your kids. Yours are also very young. What are some of the things, or how do you go about making sure that you create cool adventures with your kids?
Yeah, I just try to bring them along wherever I go. Admittedly, it's a hard season of life because there's a limit to what you can do when your kids are 4 years old and under. Yep. There's a length of time where at some point they're going to need a nap or they're going to have to pee or all kinds of crazy things are going to happen. But I err on the side of just going for it and then dealing with whatever happens later. Just yesterday, I hooked up a bike trailer to the back of my bicycle, and we rode a couple miles. I think it was 4 or 5 miles down to the waterfront over here in Buffalo and checked out these ships. And we had an amazing time. I mean, it was not perfect. We had 2 4-year-olds, and they were fighting and wrestling the whole time and running in multiple directions when in a huge crowd. So it was like pretty chaotic, but I just want to I want to go out. I don't want to err on the side of let's keep them safe and keep them in one place so nothing bad happens and I don't have to deal with the chaos. Bring them along. Like if we're going to go out to eat, let's go. Let's learn how to to conduct ourselves in a restaurant. If we want to go do something as a family, yeah, it might be crazy, but let's just say yes to it and hope for the best and deal with whatever becomes a problem later. And so that's kind of the philosophy I'm taking now. And I think as they get older, I'm excited about stretching that into even more interesting type of activities.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Say yes to it. And not the let's go into the restaurant and then this is your child, right? I see it more and more. It's like, okay. They're like, really? The kid's 3 and sitting there with a mobile. I had a discussion with that with my friend, and he's like, yeah, but yours are running around going crazy while mine is just sitting and behaving. I'm like, yeah, I think I prefer that. But
Yeah.
so that's amazing, man. Yeah, I think I saw the pictures of the ships. That looked really, really cool.
It was
So
cool. I was actually thinking of you because one of them was from Spain. It was
all right.
It's called the Santa Maria, and it was made completely of wood. It was one of those old Spanish Armada ships. It was amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, the kids must have gone nuts.
Yeah.
Getting way too excited. I love that, man. When these guys get way too excited, it's like, oh god. We take them a lot to the zoo and to amusement parks. And
Parque Warner.
Exactly, Parque Warner.
You know what? Can we acknowledge something though? Sometimes that what we think is going to be so amazing for them, they don't even care. Like yesterday, the 2 4-year-olds were more interested in the parking meter than they were at looking at the ships. They wanted to play with like the buttons on the parking meter and then wrestle with each other. It's just kind of funny. Like we go in with these big hopes, like I'm going to be an awesome dad and I'm going to show them this really cool thing and they're going to love it. And I'm going to be amazing as a dad. And then they don't even care about it. Yeah. It's like, what the heck? I try to do these nice things for my kids and they don't even appreciate it. Yeah. But that's all part of the journey. You just roll with it and realize that they're young. And the most important thing in those moments is that you're with them. And what I mean with them, you're talking to them, you're with them in the mess, you're with them in the chaos, and they'll remember that you were with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but sometimes we're so focused, like it always makes me, it surprises me that when we go to the zoo, especially when we go to the zoo, because my wife doesn't come with us. She doesn't like the whole zoo thing, which, it's fine, but they love it, and especially the shows. So I just take them anyway. And the agony that some families go through is like, we went to the zoo and you this and you that, and they're yelling, and sometimes they even smack their kids on the heads. It's like, wow, okay, maybe next time go somewhere else, or don't go anywhere, because it looked more like an agony than like an actual fun day. And especially some fathers, they only have like one day to do something fun with their kids. Yeah. And then have to go through that. It's just like, wow, that's just sad. Oh, this is really cool too. Josh, experience is so important. We take our 4-year-old everywhere. There you go. He travels all the time with us. Parents get so scared, to take them out, but it's an important part of development. Thanks for sharing, Josh. I really appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. So I love that.
Yeah. At what point are they going to magically be ready for the outside world? We've all seen that happen, right? When a 21-year-old just gets let out of the house for the first time, and it's like, wow, they kind of are acting just like my 4-year-old acts when he's out.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, now's the time to help them learn how to act and how to be when they're out and among other people.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
Hey, Josh.
So I got another question in regards, looping back again a little bit in regards to what you said, right? You got to know who you are. You also mentioned, like, you asked the question, okay, what is it that you need right now to your wife, right? So she can get some me time. I'm assuming that you also need some me time once in a while. What is it that you do to make sure that you get your me time and refill your cup?
Yeah, that's a great question. And frankly, in this season, I haven't done a great job at it. But when the volume of just noise and intensity because of the kids' ages gets high, for me, just having some quiet and being able to read and listen and journal is a really restorative experience for me. I also like to travel too. Like if I get a chance to get away with sometimes the EFM guys, sometimes some other friends, if we can go out and go to a conference and learn something for a few days and spend some time having some nice meals together, that really restores me as well. And, when it's a funny thing, when you support your wife and you give her opportunities to fill her cup, then when it comes time for you to need to fill your cup, she's a whole lot more on board with that. And so that it becomes this mutual game of, how can we help each other fill each other's cup along the way? And so, yeah, for me, I would say those two things, just some quiet and also spending time with my good friends who know me and growing together and having intentional conversations with them and having a good old time too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's really cool. And then, yeah, what you mentioned, just, making sure you fill her cup up, then that automatically, no, not automatically, but, the reciprocation from that will mean that you most likely will fill up your cup. See, that's one of the things that I've really, really learned with that. Serving for me used to be, I serve you and then I expect you to serve me, right? So I clean the house before you get home, so you don't have to do it, but then I expect something in return. Right? So
sometimes that works.
That go wrong. So now I really understand, like, what does it mean to serve, right? And that fills me up more now as well, which is more beneficial in the short run, but definitely in the long run, also for my own mind. So one of the things, right? Because you're on your journey of really trying to get to know yourself. So we're talking here about self-development, and I'm very interested in knowing, do you have a daily routine to make sure that you daily, work on yourself, or is that somewhat of a daily routine? And if so, how does that look like?
Yeah. In this season of life, it has to be very simple for me because there isn't a ton of extra space. But there's a couple things that I know if I don't get them, then I feel pretty depleted by the time the end of the day rolls around. One is pretty simple. Hydration. I drink a big glass of water to start the day. And that just helps. It's just kind of a practical thing that sets my day off on the right foot. Another thing I do is I try to read something that's going to help set the tone for my day. So even if sometimes it's only 10 minutes, 15 minutes of reading. Ideally, it's a little bit more than that, but something that challenges me, helps me grow, and just helps establish the routine of the day. And another thing is I want to make sure that I move in some way physically. Sometimes that's a walk around the block, and other times it's a little bit more involved where I can work out or run or something like that. So I think in this season of life, those three very simple things: to hydrate, to put something really positive in my mind, and also to exercise.
Exactly. That's awesome. He's back again. I just, your oldest is 4, right? Okay, so one thing, what do we do in the morning? What do we do this morning? ¿No te acuerdas? ¿The Pokemon? Yeah?
Yoga de Pokémon.
Yoga.
Y mañana vamos a tener campamento de verano y natación.
Exactly. He's going to summer camp. He's going to swim. But yeah, we try, and of course it doesn't always work, but in the morning we do yoga. It's called Cosmic Kids, and it's yoga for kids in stories. So for your people, you would really love it. It's like with Pokemon, Star Wars, stuff like that, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, and I do it with them. So you get your workout in, and they get their workout in, right? Which is important. And you both have tons of fun. And she is really, really good. So I always, I hear people saying, like, I want to get something in, but it's hard with the kids and stuff like that. Try it. We love it. Like my 3-year-old now is also doing it.
Oh, so that's awesome.
6 and 3-year-old, and they really enjoy it, right? Right?
Love it.
You want to ask anything else? Did you have a question? No?
La nocilla de Batman.
He's talking about the Choco Pasta. It has Batman around it, so that's why they like it.
Awesome.
So, going into a little bit more in regards to the entrepreneurship as well. what would be the biggest tip that you could give to other dadpreneurs out there, trying to make it work, right? As a dadpreneur.
Yeah, I think I hate to say communication with your wife, but that's really where it needs to start. Because if you guys are not on the same page, then what happens to most men, and this has happened to me as well, is we live in guilt about not doing enough in every area of our lives. So when we're working at our job or building our business, we feel guilty because we're not spending enough time with our wives or our kids. And when we're with our wives or kids, we feel like we feel guilty about not getting enough done in our businesses, and it should be doing better. And so when you're on the same page with your wife and you're communicating about how this needs to look and designing intentionally what you want your days to look like, then when you leave for work, you're both on the same page. It's not like this kind of painful process of, oh, you're leaving when I need help. No, we both agreed on this before, that this would be the time that I work and this will be the time that I'm with my kids. So being all in and being present where you are, I think, is really, really important. And then another thing I would say is realizing that having a long view when it comes to building your business. Again, not letting your most important relationships fall off, but seeing your business as a marathon and not a sprint. So putting in those regular deposits, planting seeds, having those conversations. Most of us underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 to 7 years, but we overestimate what we can accomplish in 3 to 6 months. So we have to view it like farming. You plant the seed, you water it, it grows a little bit. Then by the time you're there to pick the fruit, it's been developed over months and months of time. It's been invested in over several months or sometimes even years before that fruit blossoms and grows and you can pick it. So those are the two things: getting on the same page with your wife and seeing your business through a long-term lens.
Yeah. The first one I learned the hard way.
Well, it's an ongoing struggle, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well said. No, when you mentioned every Sunday we get together and then we talk about what's going on in the week, I didn't do that before. And then all of a sudden I had a live interview. So I was like now, right, we're in the middle of a talk and somebody was at the door to drop off the food for the dogs. We also have 2 dogs in the house. And she was trying to call me. Well, of course, my phone is off. And then she joined the live interview and writing a message like, open the door. I'm just like, what, really? Come on. And that's where it comes in. Like, if you know who you are and you know for yourself, like, look, I am in control of me. I'm not in control of anything else. It's like, okay, I need to change something because this is not working. I need to communicate better. So she knows what I'm doing and I know better what she's doing. And that comes from me, right? So, great messages. Look, man, I love you guys' podcast. You saw that I shared it on Facebook. I love what you guys are doing. I think it's amazing that 4 guys can be on one show and just really rock it. And I'm just wondering because you see, I go live. You guys have chosen 4 podcasts. What's your guys' podcast strategy moving forward for the business that you guys got set up?
Yeah, this is really a passion for all of us that are a part of this. So it was less about how can we make money on this and more about, wow, we are so passionate about living this kind of life, being entrepreneurs and going all in with our families and our marriages, that we need to talk about this. So we went into this thinking like, this is just who we are. Let's get together and continue this conversation. And now what we're finding is so many men resonate with this desire to be free and flexible, but also really invest in their marriages and spend time with their kids. And so what we're seeing is all these folks are reaching out to us and asking us how we're doing it and asking how we can support them. So we're now starting to think about strategy and how we want to get this brand and this message out to the world. And right now we're all working together on creating a book around the values that we hold with the podcast. And so that's going to be our next step with the business strategy, is getting that content out there so it's easily digestible and we can get this message out to other men who want to live this life.
I love it. I can't wait for that. So how do you guys, because it's 4 guys, right? Completely different views. I mean, it's the same values, but it's still, different experiences, different views. How do you guys come up saying like, okay, this episode we're going to talk about X, right? Or is it just at random, whatever happened? Like, guys, should we talk about this? And everybody agrees. How do you make sure that stays into alignment? Because we're all talking about 4 different kind of guys, right?
Yeah. So we've recognized each other's giftings. And so Jamie and I are a little bit more on the creative side. We like to dream. We like to come up with crazy ideas. And so Jamie's the editing mastermind behind the podcast. He's the one that organizes everything and gives it color, so to speak. So nice. Jamie and I often will talk first before all 4 of us get together and just get all of our crazy ideas out there. And then we'll bring it back to the 2 Chris's. Now, Chris he's the quarterback. He's the one that kind of manages all the other guys. And he helps us boil it down into some really specific points so it comes across effectively and clearly. Mm-hmm. And the other Chris does the same thing for us. He's just a brilliant guy. He's a little bit farther down the road than us too, so he has some more experience that he brings, and he adds some stories and experience to the whole the cocktail of what we are. So we have we've recognized each other's skill sets and tried to plug each other in different areas. So we have the idea guys, me and Jamie. We bring it to the Chris's. They boil it down and clarify it and add some more value to it. So that's kind of how that works.
Exactly. I love it. But by the time that you guys go on the podcast, nothing is, or at least that's what the feeling I got. Nothing is reversed. Is that correct? It's just like, okay, this is a topic and we go, right?
Yeah, we generally have an outline and we organize the episode, but yeah, we don't rehearse what we're going to say.
Exactly. Yeah, I love it. Again, I love it. For the people that are watching right now, sorry, I don't have the link. But for the people that are listening or watching to the replay, you can find the link to their podcast in the description. Go check it out. Again, I left my review. So if you go check it out and you resonate, make sure also help these guys out by leaving a review, because that's the best way that you can give back in a simple way, right? Yeah. So thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. Now, leadership, right? McGreevy Leadership, that's the business. Let me share real quick, man. Where is it? There it is, right? So for the people that want to check out Michael personally, make sure that you click on this link. It's in the comments section. And for the people that are on the replays, it is in the description section. Check it out. Share a little bit. Is it leadership because you're focused on executive, or is it leadership because that's what you're focused on?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's because it's what's required of us if we want to become the people that we want to become. We need to learn how to lead ourselves. We need to learn how to lead others. And that's why I chose that leadership name as a part of it. But really what it is a lot around our conversation about identity. It's helping people discover who they really are, so then they can face the things they want to face and become the people they want to become. Because when it's clear who you are, then it's clear how to move forward, and it's clear how to become that person you want to be. And that's where confidence starts to come in as well, when you have clarity and focus about where you want to go and who you want to become. So that's what I help people with.
Wow. Okay. So I see this. Exactly. So Rebecca, thanks, Rebecca. Yeah. Glad you're with us. So tell me, how does that process go then, right? How do I step within you? How do you guide me through the process of, finding myself, getting to know myself?
Yeah, it starts with a lot of questions. It starts with a lot of deep questions about what you want and who you want to become in life. And then every single arrangement is uniquely designed for each of my clients. So I don't have a cookie cutter process that I just say, step 1 through 10, and you'll know who you are and you'll be all set by the end of this. People are too dynamic and they're too unique to apply some specific process to them. Believe me, I've tried early on in my business. I tried to come up with a process that could fit everybody, a one size fits all sort of thing. And it's not the most effective thing. So it's really a partnership where I'm walking together with somebody and helping them take steps toward becoming who they were made to be, and also to accomplish what they want to have in their life.
Mm-hmm. And is that, because I'm always trying to see what people think of what makes a great coach, is that part of what makes a great coach, is to see it like, look, this is not me being the coach telling you what to do, but it's a partnership where I am walking alongside your journey?
That's right. What you're talking about is a consultant, which there are times when consulting is more helpful. Like, how do I set up my podcast equipment? Like somebody can come in and say, do 1 through 10, and you'll be set up to do podcasting. But when it comes to a person's dreams and who they want to become and something they want in life, it's a much more dynamic, flowing sort of process. So that is the unique advantage of coaching, is being able to learning how to be present with a person and to draw out from them their uniqueness and to spur them on toward becoming the person they've always wanted to be.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Being their biggest cheerleader as well, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's cheerleading, but sometimes it's reality. And sometimes it's saying, hey, what you want in life and what you're doing right now don't line up. Those two things are in direct conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to do about that? Like, kind of bringing reality and bringing clarity to what's really happening in their life. Because oftentimes we've told ourselves lies. We've told ourselves that, I'm getting a bad break. I'm doing all the right things, but it's just not working for me. Well, maybe we need to dig into that. Are you doing all the right things? And what are all the right things? Are you confused about what all the right things are? And really bringing clarity back toward them over and over again, and helping them continue to take steps forward and grow and get to where they want to go to. So it's a very deep transformational process to work with a coach. Yeah.
Love it. I appreciate you sharing that. So since we're almost at the end, and you mentioned like one of the things that you love to do and to, in your me time, right, fill up your cup, but also for your self-development is reading. Share with the audience, with our dadpreneurs, what would be 3, let's say 3 top books that you would recommend for them to start reading?
Yeah, this is a tough question, because I like to have some context around where they're wanting to grow, but I'll take a stab at it anyway. So Andy Andrews is one of my favorite authors, and his book, The Traveler's Gift, is filled with wisdom. It has 7 principles that can really help you live a more successful life. So that's one around the personal development. Around communication, there's a book called Secrets of Dynamic Communication, written by Ken Davis. It's just a really helpful way to frame a speech or a talk, or even a blog post, or if you're putting some kind of content out there, but it's especially pointed toward speaking, that's a really solid book to help you frame that speech so it's effective and powerful and the message sticks. When it comes to searching for a career, I'll give a shout out to my man, Dan Miller, out of Franklin, Tennessee. He wrote a book called 48 Days to the Work You Love. It's a very solid process on discovering the career that's right for you and how to pursue that dream. So those are 3. I could come up with hundreds of books, but for today, there you go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So let me ask you another question, because I keep having conversations, and then the people say, "Oh yeah, I read so many books," and then come to find out they're actually audiobooks, which I personally, maybe that's the ego, but I personally find that, like, dude, that's cheating. So, let me ask you. So now I'm starting to get interest. Like, what do you prefer? Like, is it like actually taking the book, right, and read the pages, or do you do both? What's your go-to strategy?
I prefer to sit down and read a book, but again, the times in my day when I have a block of 45 minutes to an hour where I can sit and read, they're just non-existent right now in this season of life. And so what I've done to make it work is more often I'll listen to audiobooks. So if I'm on a drive, I'll pop one in and I'll get to read. Or if I'm doing a home improvement project, I'll turn a book on and listen to it while I'm working. So that's just made it easier for me to still continue to grow with the limited time that I have. But I would prefer to do both if I could.
Exactly. But I like what you said. Do whatever's necessary to make it work. That's a great advice as well. And when you're driving, does that mean you're alone, or do you also put on audiobooks when you're with the kids?
Yeah, not as much with the kids, because they ask for specific songs. Right now it's Aladdin. They want to hear Aladdin songs. But if I'm driving with Lydia, my wife, then we'll often listen to podcasts or books together to help us grow, so we can talk about the content, and then it really helps set it deep within us if we can have a discussion about it afterward.
I like that. Yeah, I tried to put up audiobooks. I even read to them my latest book. I got a book that was recommended by John Lee Dumas, The Secrets of a Millionaire Mind.
Oh yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I decided, you know what, I need to still read half an hour, but my kids are here. So they were playing. I sat in the living room. I said, "Guys, do you want Daddy to read the story?" And they're like, "Yeah," they love stories. So they're like, "Yeah," they said. And I took a picture like, "Hey, look at us." Yeah, I started like not even in the first sentence, like, "This is boring." Oh, God. So, all right, I continued for half an hour, right? I thought they might not hear it. They might not listen. I'm sure something goes in that noggin.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Let's hope so. I mean, that's it. I went through that, and I'm going to go through it again. It's an amazing book.
That's a great
So that's it, man. Michael, thank you so much for being on. For all those people that really connected with you throughout this live interview, or when they're listening later, they got some questions they want to follow you. Let me check out real quick. Where did I leave? There it is. So at least for the people, here's the website. You can check that out. But what are other good ways to get connected with you?
Yeah, you can email me, call me, and listen to the podcast. Of course, you can go to efmlife.com, and that'll get you plugged in with the podcast and the Facebook group for the Entrepreneurial Family Man. But yeah, reach out. If you send me a message on Facebook, I'll respond to every single one of those. So feel free to reach out anytime.
Fantastic. That's great. Yeah. Make sure for the people that are listening to the replay, both this website will be in the description. Also, the efmlife.com will be in the description. So you can just click on it and get connected right away. Again, thank you so much. Thank you to Josh, Rebecca, Jamie, and everybody else that was on. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your support, especially Rebecca. She's been there from the beginning when I started. Thank you for sharing the value for others. I really appreciate you. And we will see each other very soon. I got tons and tons more live interviews coming up this week. Plus, Michael, hopefully, that's the intent, will be back on the show, hopefully as soon as possible when we start changing our strategy for live interviews. And my goal is to, once that strategy change is coming in, to have Michael, Jamie, Chris, and Chris on, all four being the five of us for the first time. So it's going to be cool.
Can't wait. Thank you so much, man. This was awesome. And I really appreciate what you're doing to keep this conversation going about being a a fearless father. That's such an important thing to be after. And man, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you saying that. You want to say goodbye?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Are you still meeting up with your friends now that you're a father? Kids making you stress out. You got no time for yourself to work out, read, or relax. Can you still remember the time you were hanging out with your friends, feeling energetic, happy, and confident? Spending time together and talking about your life and your crazy dreams. You're feeling alone now, don't you? No one to share your challenges with, and you're just running around from one storm into the next. Well, it's time to change this now. Join me and the Brotherhood of Fearless Fathers to speak on a weekly basis with like-minded dads to crush your challenges, face your fears with determination, be held accountable, and regain control of your life. If you want to become the hero your family needs you to be, then go to becomeafearlessfather.com/brotherhood. I'm looking forward to seeing you on one of our next calls.